Let's talk about the A&M 2025 offensive line. It was a hell of a year last year, resurgence in the program for a position group that plagued us for several years. And I once again have Matthew Dawson to help me break the thing down. He was here for the DB video, but for those that don't know him, Matthew, quickly tell us who you are and where they can find you.
Over there on the redshirt sophomore, covering college football from a macro lens. You can catch us on YouTube and Spotify with my brother Chris Dawson, and we love talking about college football. So be sure to just check us out. It's been tough recent weeks, life transitions right now for the both of us, but I mean, there's not much time here. We got a couple weeks till college football starts, so time to get locked in. So here
Yeah,
we go.
y'all can't miss it. They make really good stuff. Like I said in the last one, I listen to them all the time for teams A&M are playing or just teams you're interested in. They go really in depth and they know their stuff. But I wanted to start this video since we had just talked, kind of given an overview of your thoughts on A&M going into the season before we get into the O-line in general, because everyone I bring on, I'm trying to just get a general feel for the team. So Matthew, if you just want to give kind of a quick, opening statement, if you will, about where you think A&M stands heading into 2025, year two of Mike Elko.
You were really close last year to making big noise. I mean, like, what? Think about this. A player here there against Auburn, right? Or a player here there against Notre Dame. A couple explosive plays you take away. Like what is the conversation then? Heading in this year, if you had made the SEC championship, which you would have if you had just beaten Auburn, what's that conversation if you had found a way to get that 10th win? I mean, you're a couple plays away from like being on the doorstep of the college football playoffs. Like you would be in that conversation with Alabama and SMU about like who's getting that last spot. So, and then the conversation and talking points are way different this year. I think in the offseason, people not being as high on like the quarterback position, like wondering about injuries, like, oh, you saw some slip ups on the defense, which really was just a culmination of like explosive plays and a couple of key third downs. You were close, man. And you get a lot of that team back for this upcoming season. Virtually hardly any changes on the coaching staff. And we know this year, particularly more than any other year, you saw an unprecedented amount of coaching continuity in SEC, which I think will make for a more competitive conference, I think. But boy, one position group in particular that has been a key indicator of Texas A&M football success has been the offensive line, and you get everyone back and then some. It is going to be an exciting year for this offensive line. So I think A&M's in a real good position to make some serious noise. I think scheduling dynamic, getting all those tough games at home helped you a lot. It was more like high ceiling, low floor, type of schedule. But this one, it's like, boy, you've had a lot of tough times winning on the road against ranked teams, particularly. I mean, you haven't won one since 2014. You got some tough games on the road. So, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference between 10-2, 8-4, 7-5, like winning those tough games on the road. Something that I'm more confident in this coaching staff getting accomplished than I would have been in the past coaching regime.
Yeah, they got over that hump last year. It wasn't like a top 15, top 25 team on the road, but they did it in their first road game of the year against Florida. Florida ended up being pretty good, better than a lot of people expected. That was a really big feather under their cap, but that evaded us in the latter portion of the year. The game you mentioned versus Auburn, the game versus South Carolina, and I always call those the pitfalls of your schedule. It's like the really tough games that you get on the road. It's like the perfect storm. And A&M does avoid Alabama. They avoid Georgia this year. They still play Texas as they will every year, but the good teams you play are still really freaking good in Notre Dame and LSU. And there's some other really tough games, and just got to get over that hump because I think you have the team to do it. And just like that DB room we just talked about, this offensive line brings back a lot of familiar faces, all the familiar faces if you're talking about starters. But unlike that room, the O-line brings back some pretty damn positive play in 2024. So talk to me about last year. What changed? How was Adam Cushing finally able to get this thing over the hump? Because it seemed like 3 years in a row, O-line was like maybe quarterback, but O-line was one of the main stories of why the offense failed. How do you turn it around?
Dude, I mean, one, Adam Cushing is a great coach. We're
Yeah.
talking about like first round talents, coming out of his system from Duke. Versatile, athletic, strong, great IQ players. Graham Barden, going to the NFL over there at Duke, and other players too that were really good for them. And the thing was, it's like in the offseason, last offseason, not this past one, but the one before that, the question mark was like, okay, what are you going to do about the offensive line? Like, how do you get guys? And you brought in, like a transfer from Troy. You brought in a couple guys to compete over there on the offensive line. And, aside from Coley, who was a late get, those guys fizzled out. They had no chance. Like, these guys just seem to improve. I think Colin Klein helping shape these guys, get them a little bit more mobile. You've got some real size here too on that offensive line last year, which helps a lot, in the duration of a tough, long SEC schedule. This offensive line turned it around. I think you also saw a couple new faces kind of pull. Chase Basantis shows huge improvement. We knew Trey Zoom was going to be good, and he was. At center, Mark Naboo went down, but Coley was fantastic in his replacement. Armage transfer, like, he was fantastic, but you knew that he was the guy that you felt really good about in terms of the portal gets. And then at right tackle, I thought Crownover did a rather nice job, compared to what he had done in the past. Because remember, he changed from tight end to offensive line, and that takes time. And Fothery, I thought, didn't have great snaps last year all the time, but he certainly played a significant amount of snaps and, had an impact on this offensive line being pretty effective. So I am very excited because all those guys that I just mentioned are back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
uh,
take me through it, man. Let's go left to right here. Let's start with Trey Zune and move down the line. I mean, really, I guess just touch on their strengths, what you expect from them in the year, and if we have any, prime draft picks, which it looks like we definitely do on this offensive line, maybe talk about that too. Just take me through the line.
yeah, so Trey Zune is going to be your left tackle. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was captain for a second year, grad student, decided to come back. Probably could have been drafted. I don't know what round he would have been drafted. He's not like, I mean, he's tall and he's long. Um, I guess I don't know his arm length particularly, but I'm like, he's 6'7". All right, like,
Yeah,
he's a pretty decent body for the NFL. He's not like 6'7", 335. He's like
right.
a little bit slimmer in that way, but he's sturdy. He's quick with his feet. And in pass protection, that's kind of been his bread and butter, being that left
Mhm.
tackle coming in there, even when the rest of the offensive line was not particularly playing all that well. Like, Trey Zune, even his first year starting, was like pretty reliable in that
Yeah.
spot. So that's a guy that you feel really nice about his pass protecting Marcel there on the blind side. From a road grading perspective, another year of Tommy Moffitt, we'll see like how
Mhm.
he can improve there in the run game. But in that pass blocking, I would say that is definitely his strength, and that's what you want in your left tackle, right?
Absolutely.
At guard, that's where you want the road graders. I'll just name them both. Chase Basantis, uh, New Jersey kid. I mean, guy that so big that Mike Elko got him back from the portal. She's going when the dipped in the portal a little bit in the offseason when Mike Elko first came in, getting him
Mhm.
back. 6'6". What is he, 325 now? He cut another 5 pounds just because, why not? If you're going to be moving around, you need athletes at guard in this Colin Klein system. You saw them, in that interior when he was at Kansas State. I mean, so that first game against Notre Dame, I think they ran, at least with Le'Veon Moss, about 65% of the snaps they ran zone schemes, right? So everyone's just moving one direction kind of as a unit. Gap schemes, it's man, you're basically playing man coverage when you're on the offensive line there, and you got to move. You got to get to a spot. You're doing complex, pulls and pulling pins. I mean, you're doing all this crazy stuff that, like, not every team's doing necessarily down and down. You saw them use a lot more gap scheme um, down the road, on that schedule. And I think slimming down and being a great athlete, you benefit from that a lot. So Armage cut weight. He cut about 5 pounds, which, like, doesn't seem significant, but I think coming off of some rehab, I think he looks really good and really fast. Basantis, I mean, freak
Mm.
athlete. I know people talk about Armage. He's probably like one of your top 3 NFL guards right now, like from a preseason NFL draft perspective. But Basantis, like, I think NFL scouts maybe just haven't seen enough of him. He was hurt a little bit last year. Like, he's so good, guys. He is so good. I anticipate him just absolutely road grading, getting hands on linebackers, and people just being miserable. watching him just climb to that second level. So yeah, he's a freak athlete. So both of those guys, I mean, are going to be really good. You are not worried about to left tackle. You are not worried about either guard because both those guys are going to be solid. We'll go to center now, where it's exciting because you have a little bit of a competition. Mark Naboo won that starting job last year. Just 3-star from Washington, comes in, does the dirty work, right? And he gets a start, played like 20 some snaps, gets hurt, out for season. And this guy that you brought in as a depth piece, quote unquote, I mean, you brought him in to compete, but ultimately didn't win the job. Coley, I thought he was awesome. I thought he was great. I mean, in terms of you played around a unit that was very solid, and as a center, you can benefit the most from that, playing around guys who are really good. But dude, bringing him in from Utah was a blessing. He was very
Mhm.
solid, and he had a lot of experience over there at Utah. Specifically playing center, like lots of snaps playing center. 2023 played over 500 snaps there, and he's only one sack last year. I thought he was pretty effective as a from a pass blocking perspective. He's a pretty decent athlete. Uh, I don't know that I don't think he necessarily cut weight. I know Mark Naboo's down 5 pounds from what he was last year as well.
Seems
So
to be
that's
a
a guy.
theme on this offensive line. It seems like that's a calculated move to do what Colin Klein wants to do, and you just expanding what he's talking about. I mean, obviously, when you're running gap scheme, you have guys pulling all the time. People are going
Mhm.
to be running around, pulling, have to get to a spot, have to beat linebackers to spots, and this is going to help with that. And it's going to help a guy. I think Fayu did cut a couple pounds, but you're talking about this weight loss.
Yeah.
Tommy Moffitt, year 2, it's going to have an effect here.
Well, yeah, and you notice the tackles did not cut weight. In fact, all the
Right.
tackles put on weight, and all of the interior players just snipped a little bit off
Mm-hmm.
just to get a little bit faster. That's at least my reasoning.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like some of these players could be just like for health reasons, like their bodies, their knees, whatever. I don't know.
It's going to help by proxy, though. It's going to help.
Yeah,
It's
it seems like, and obviously every team, every fan of every team, every fan of every team, right? Like when someone on their team puts on weight, it's like, oh yeah, that's great weight, like that's
yeah,
good weight.
right, right.
Who knows, right? But I think with Tommy Moffitt, I think there's not a lot of strength and conditioning coaches in the country where you can confidently say, like, when someone's fluctuating weight, or
Yeah.
changing, you're like, okay, that is 95% chance that that's very intentional.
Exactly. I
So
had this comment and no shot at this guy. I understand this is a snap reaction, but Marcus Radcliffe is one of the guys who reportedly has put on some muscle this offseason. And I got a comment, and again, no shade to you. I understand your reasoning. You're thinking this. It's like, well, Radcliffe needs to work on speed, not size. He's doing it the wrong. He's going the wrong direction here. It's like if Tommy Moffitt is kind of the puppet master behind what's going on, I'm gonna trust the freaking process.
yeah, 1 billion%. I mean, we're not in the business of knowing. Me and you, Drew, we're not in the
Yeah,
business of knowing like who should be cutting what, when, and
exactly.
where, and like how, But I'm very excited for that interior and having that competition at center. I think either one would be great, and having that depth. And I think you have depth across the line of scrimmage. And I guess we'll eventually get to that, but
Yeah,
I'll call Mark Naboo as the center. Week 1, and geez, who knows? He won the job last year. Like, who
yeah.
knows? Literally, who knows? Like,
And his recovery apparently went smoothly because he went out in Notre Dame and he I think was full go in spring, wasn't he?
yeah, well, he was out there in the spring. I'm not sure. I don't remember necessarily like the level. I mean, spring it's not super intense, so
Right. They didn't
all
have to
the
sit him, and
time.
they were pretty cautious with sitting guys in spring. He was able to go.
Oh yeah, so like it seems like his rehab recovery. He looks fast. He cut weight. I mean, that's a guy I think that's ready to go. And I was really excited about him last year because I don't think people knew who he was. Just like from his spot plays at guard that he would play. Every now and then, like due to injuries or blowouts, whatever.
And maybe you could speak more to this. If you look back at Fayu's recruitment, it was a really kind of under the radar recruitment, not a big talker, kind of a quiet guy that keeps to himself, a very calculated seeming dude. And I like that from your center right there.
Yeah, and same with Naboo. I mean, both of them.
That's
Like
what I was
not.
talking. I meant Naboo
Oh,
if I said
sorry.
that's right. If I said otherwise,
Yeah,
I meant Naboo there.
no, it's yeah. You're all good. I mean, I think both of them. Well, both of them were definitely. under recruited based on the level of production that they've had. I mean, if you're going
Right.
to be an SC starter, it's not that Mark DeBoos had extreme production because he's only would have started 1 year, but he got hurt. But I mean,
Coaches seem to really like him. Yeah.
yeah, Feu was what offers Michigan State and
Yeah.
Utah,
Yeah.
and both Washington kids. Um, and Naboo, I think that the Washington pipeline was there a little bit when he was getting recruited, but yeah, I like both of those guys there. Again, cutting weight on the interior, I think is very intentional. I think the conversations with Colin Klein and Tommy Moffitt are like, I need my interior guys faster
Yeah.
and I need anchors at the tackle. And he said,
Did just
yeah, okay, that's exactly what we're
say
going
no
to do.
more. Well, speaking of those
Which,
tackle positions, I'm so excited to watch Crownover because this is this is where you reap what you've sown with a guy like Crownover. It was always going to be a project. And I think maybe we reaped earlier than we expected we would because I thought he was pretty good last year. He's on some early, there's some early hype for him this year nationally. But, he came in obviously transitioning from tight end to tackle. And I think he maybe played a little bit rotationally early on and we took some lumps there. But last year, I mean, I think he graded higher than Trey Zune by 0.2 per PFF on pass block. I mean, largely improved. And now this is the year where we really thought it was going to happen. So tell me how you're feeling. What's the outlook for Crownover?
yeah, I mean, again, we talked about it. Tight end converted into tackle. We knew it was going to take time.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, it's I'm not sure. I mean, he played 600 snaps last year, and Fatheree played 300 some. I'm not sure Fatheree is completely going to be phased out. He also put on some weight as well. He's a guy who's been there, and I think the coaching staff still believes in Ruben Fatheree. I would not be surprised if they both played, if it was similar, Crownover maybe plays 550 and Fatheree plays 400 snaps, if that's the breakdown of the snappage this season, would not be surprised. And the
Yeah.
thing is, it's that might happen even with Demetrius Crownover being a legit NFL prospect, because I think people the long toolsy
Yeah.
guy that hasn't had a lot of experience, oh, what can we do with this kid, this clay mold that we have. So when I am looking at this tackle position, I think people are most concerned about that. But guys, it's the same two guys from last year. And it wasn't perfect every single time. And it's going to be tough to go on the road against some pretty decent defensive lines this year. You don't have to play the South Carolina defensive line you played this year will not be the same one that you played last year. I'm inclined to say, and maybe will bite my tongue, I am inclined to believe that the Texas defensive line won't be the same as last year, but it'll still be very, very good.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe that Arkansas's defensive line will take a massive step back. So I think you're
I'm
in a spot where you have some really nice matchups for this offensive line to go to work.
I'm real curious about week 3 against Notre Dame because they obviously lose the big names, but we've talked about this. The guys that are filling in, they played a lot of football last year because those guys missed time last year. So they're not starting fresh there. And I think it's a really big litmus test for where this offensive line is because I could see it going either way, but I would favorite A&M in that matchup, if only slightly, against, you're talking offensive line versus defensive line, and that's an early game.
Yeah, and sure, Notre Dame lost Riley Mills and
Power cross.
Howard Cross. What's
Oh,
funny is
yeah.
I went and talked to some fans. I was at a Cubs game back in Chicago, which is my hometown, or no, I guess a little bit north of Chicago. But I was in Wrigleyville talking to some Notre Dame fans, just chopping it up. And these fans are mega confident that this D line is going to be
Mm-hmm.
better or as good, if not better, than it was the season before. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm really, is it going to be significantly better? And I'm looking at it on paper, and I'm this might be a pretty good defensive line.
Yeah.
So, and you never know. You do lose Al Golden, though, defensive coordinator there at
True.
Notre Dame, went to the Bengals,
Yeah.
which is a big deal. I'm not going to even. I think Al Golden didn't necessarily get a fair shot at Miami. That's just my opinion when he was there. I think he's very good.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think is going to be significant.
And we get them early in that adjustment. It's their second game of the year.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting one. And then also on top of that, like to put an emphasis, we talked about it in the defensive, or sorry, the defensive backs video. It's like NFL talent's what you need to win football games. Okay, heard you on that one. Yeah, 4 of these guys could be drafted on the
Yeah.
offensive line
Yeah.
in the 2026 draft, and that's not an exaggeration. And I
No.
might be underselling that number. Like if at the center position we have someone really stand out, um, or say like Father and Crown Over are both, splitting. I don't know. I don't know what it would be like. Maybe Crown Over gets hurt. Like who knows? But my anticipation is that like 4 guys get drafted. That's assuming if like Basantis goes because he's just a junior, he doesn't have to go. But yeah, that is the level of talent that we're talking here, and that is it's it's not an exaggeration, Drew, to say that like 4 of these guys could get
No,
drafted.
it's really not. I mean, you're looking at it. It's like Basantis is either this year or next year. Either he plays it up this year or he comes back and it's going to be next year. I think he's been on boards as a sophomore. I mean, I think he's there. But Reed Adams could have gone pro last year. You just talked about Zune maybe going pro last year, and those guys come back to raise their stock. And then, yeah, Crown Over. Obviously, everything you're saying is right. And if that's a metric for winning football, you're going to have it on offensive line. But another part of this offensive line last year that maybe wasn't quite as consistent, well, definitely wasn't as consistent as the 5 core offensive linemen, was tight end blocking. I know this isn't strictly a tight end video, but I think we need to talk about their impact in this running game. So it just never really found its consistency last year. I think a guy like Theo Melon-Orstrom is a willing blocker. He has the body to be a blocker, but I think he struggled with technique and maybe leaning a little bit too much. Obviously, coming from Sweden football, he was basically a receiver there. So this is all new to him. And maybe another guy you can talk about the culmination of years of work, like a Crown Over. But how did A&M address this in the offseason? And maybe what is the outlook of tight end blocking in 2025?
Yeah, so you got 3 tight ends in the portal. One of them is not your traditional blocking tight end. I'll get to that one first. Amari Niblack from Texas, and then before that, Alabama comes in at what is he like 6'4", 240
Yeah.
ish.
Yep.
Not built to block down to down, right? In fact, he gets reps at practice with the receivers like
Yep.
quite frequently. Like you will see him. He's got a really solid work ethic. He's like running, from the tight end drills, blocking, and then he goes right over to the wide receiver blocking drills, boom, 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 and
That's interesting.
it's
Okay.
pretty fast. Yeah, like just
Yeah.
in like those indie drills, it's quick, and
Okay.
yeah, he'll just move whenever they tell him to move. So he's a willing guy in this offense. He's going to be a versatile piece, just not the blocking tight end that you're referring to. So you got Theo Melon-Orstrom, like you talked about. I mean, holy cow, is that guy insanely athletic or what?
Insane. I
Uh,
know.
so if he figures it out blocking, that's another guy that we can talk about. Like, holy cow! Not that he would get drafted this year, but a future NFL guy. If he figures it out blocking wise. Nate Borkersher is the guy that I think they brought in 6'5", 260 pounds, and Mike O'Reilly 6'5", 260. Those guys, Mike O'Reilly from Auburn and Nate Borkersher from Nebraska. Mike O'Reilly mainly played special teams, but he is a bigger guy. Like you see him at practice, you're like, okay, that guy's big. So you're looking at like some 12 personnel in the red zone. You're like, okay, I could definitely see Mike O'Reilly playing, some 12 personnel in the red zone, goal line situations, whatever you may have, right, for those kind of situations. I think Borkersher is a guy that could definitely compete with Theo Melon-Orstrom. And when people don't know too, like he came from Nebraska, and people are really quick to say like, "Oh, he didn't even start in Nebraska." It's like, okay, over Thomas Fedoni, right, who's like legit NFL prospect, like was one of their highest rated recruits in like the last however many number of years, aside from that wide receiver that ended up transferring or whatever. But it, Thomas Fedoni, aside from like the drop issues that he had early on in his career, was like an incredible athlete. And Borkersher, I don't know that he might have been a former like walk on. Like he was came up from like the weeds, and like he's a guy that worked hard, put on the weight, and really showed his stuff, in some big time moments, blocking. So I think that that's a guy that will definitely get snaps. I really want people to be looking out for Nate Borkersher. Do not I'm not saying like he's this mega red zone threat. Like that's Theo. Like Theo is like the red zone threat. Amari Niblack is also like sort of that red zone threat. Like do not sleep on Nate Borkersher. playing consistent snaps down to down. He's pretty good. I like this film at Nebraska. Tough kid, he's from the Midwest. I'm not sure that he necessarily wanted to leave. Like this is definitely a chance that he's taking. But as a grad student that's been playing a lot of college football, he may not catch a lot of passes this year, but you're going to see number 87 out there on the field. So I think getting a tight end from Nebraska, even though he didn't start at Nebraska, like he will play, I think, a significant role in this offense, or at least I anticipate that being the case. Could be wrong because there are a lot of names and faces in this tight end room that have some sort of college football experience. In fact, all these guys except Keati Armstrong, who is pretty awesome too, true freshman, who's massive.
He's put on weight, hasn't he?
What?
I think he's put on weight.
Dude, he looks huge.
Dude, he's like 270.
He looks huge. Yeah, he is massive, man. And you go out at practice and you're like, okay, 21, working with the tight ends, like that is a mega human being. Like he's bigger than all of the other guys that have been playing college football for 3-4 years. Think of all these guys that are here have been playing college football for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And then you see this Keati Armstrong kid like just show up and he looks like, and he runs too, like pretty fast. Not sure necessarily. He's a tight end. I'm not sure like agility, like side to side, like he's going to be like crazy like that. But straight line speed, Keati Armstrong's like got it. In high school, he lined up a receiver sometimes. So
it sounds like, tight end room was, I think, very up and down last year. But this year, it sounds like you have some dudes that are kind of specialized within their roles that Klein's going to be able to do a lot of different things with. Because, like you said, you have the pass catchers that Amari Nyblack is. He might be playing freaking receiver. I'd be surprised he's lining up outside, like in a inside the 30 situation. It's like, what is this, giant, Adonis doing outside? That's our tight end. That's Amari Nyblack. And Theo can do a little bit of both. We need him to step up in the the run block game. But again, another giant target, another athlete. Then you have Borkashire and Riley that can block, and you have the young wild card in Quixote. I don't even think you have to play Quixote this year. I know everyone wants to see him play, but what luxury is it to not have to play a guy like that in a position because of the experience you have ahead of him? But I mean, do you think this tight end room is better this year than last?
It's hard to say because
I think there's some uncertainty in this room, even though we like some of the guys.
Well, I think we can both agree that the ceiling of this tight end room is the ceiling of Theo, right? Like, I think we know exactly what we're getting with Borkashire. I think Mike O'Reilly, for the most part, we kind of know what we're getting. Like, you watch him move and you're like, okay, that's a big guy. I think we know what he's for, right? I think Theo and his athleticism and like what his impact is going to be in the pass game, like assuming that he is everything that he is in the passing game, down to down, is he going to be able to block, help out those tackles? And he definitely could, man. Like, again, like this being from Sweden, like I don't think people cut him enough slack, like having to adjust the level of competition that he is playing in Europe versus like the United States of America in the Southeastern like conference. Like that's an insane level of difference of competition that you're playing. And we know his athleticism, but like you said, I anticipate it getting better.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how better. And that's why I also see Borkashire playing a significant role, because if he proves himself to be like a lot more consistent, from a blocking perspective, like those games like Arkansas where their defensive line clearly is going to regress or it's not deep, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to need to run the football. That's a game where you're going to need a guy like Borkashire potentially to step up in that role. A game like LSU, I know we've talked about a little bit off air that like it could be better, it could not be, but like you're going to need to run the ball against them. Mississippi State, you had a tough time running the ball against them last year. Explosive plays were an issue for you last year. Mississippi State was ironically one of the more explosive offensives, least consistent offenses in the SEC last year, and they probably got better on the offensive side of the football despite, losing some talent at receiver.
Thanks for Mario Craver, by the way.
Thank you for Mario Craver, Mississippi State. And then Missouri, you're going to have to run the ball as well. So, and South Carolina's defense line regresses. It's like, even though you have running backs all coming off some sort of rehab or some sort of injury or whatever, I think we've all identified that, like, one, Colin Klein offenses that ran the ball very well. We're very successful in the Big 12, and won lots of games. And in the games that A&M won in big time moments, like sure you had big time plays in the past game, like LSU Marshall's big throw, whatever, but like majority of it was like, okay, running the football was the bread and butter. And when you can't do that consistently, it gets a little bit tougher, and tight end definitely plays a role in that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned all that stuff because in addition to getting back the offensive line, they're banged up. They're coming not banged up now, but they're coming off of injuries. This running back room, all returns. Obviously, the quarterback's back. Exciting things happening in the receiver room. So I'll end it with this. I mean, outlook for A&M's offense in 2025. I mean, how much better can it be this year? I should ask you this: how good can this offensive line be, and in turn, how good can this A&M offense be this year?
If this is the, and by the way, we're all projecting this to be at least, like a top 4 offensive line in the SEC. That's the projection right now. If they stay healthy and if they are the best offensive line in the SEC, this football team will go to the college football playoffs. That's
Damn.
it. It will happen. If this is the best offensive line in the SEC this year, they will go to the college football playoffs.
And that's very much a possibility.
If I still believe that they'll be top 5 pending injury, like injuries can
Of
always,
course.
especially on the offensive line, just throw things out here. But you do have some depth. You do have some depth. You like the depth that you have here. So I know it's like a big take. It's like, oh my gosh, if like the team with the best offensive line in like the best conference in college football, yeah, of course, they're probably gonna make the college football playoffs. That's like simultaneously a hot take and not a
Yeah.
very obvious take, right? So that's a ceiling. Like if this offensive line plays to like its maximum potential, this is one of the best teams in college football. If they do not, if there are injuries, if right tackle doesn't pan out the way you want it to, if for some reason Trey Zune goes down, I think that's a bigger deal. I think there's less depth, at that left tackle spot because you're asking then Fatherly probably to go back to left tackle, which he didn't play particularly well when they moved him there uh, way back when. But yeah, that's what we're talking about here, floor and ceiling. And if you're looking at your floor, right, say there's injuries at depth. Lamont Rogers, I don't know that he would necessarily play day one as a true freshman, but highly rated recruit was. Elko talked about it multiple times. They didn't love like the offensive line class in the state of Texas, so at least at the top end, they believe that they got one of the better tackles in that
Yeah.
entire class. Robert Bourdon is a guy that for some reason I just love. Former lacrosse player.
I liked him in
Guy,
spring.
dude, I think he's really good. I think
Yeah.
people are sleeping on him. Not necessarily for 2025 guy, but he could be a 2026, 2027 guy. I mean, just mega athlete in high school. I mean, recruited to go by Adam Cushing to go to Duke, and then he flips to A&M, and he's still legging it out in that program. Nelson McGuire's been bringing it, by the way, in practice. Love watching him out there. Blake Ivy's another guy, not to mention Ruben Father. So, like, a lot of the depth is, like, super young, aside from, whoever loses that center spot in Coley and Mark Naboo, and then Ruben Father. But aside from that, you're looking at basically true sophomores and true freshmen across the board. So you like to believe that you have depth, but, like, if you are missing more than one guy, then you kind of get in the scary zone of like, all right, that floor that we talked about with this offensive line, like we're probably approaching that. So I
Yeah.
think pending injuries, though, this is one of the better offensive lines in college football, probably.
Can't wait for week 3 because it'll be 2 of the best in the country going at it. Well, all right, man. It's a real exciting group, a real exciting offense. I can't wait to watch it week 1. Matthew, thank you so much for doing this. Both videos were awesome. We covered a lot of ground. Tell them one last time where they can find you.
Find me at the Redshirt Sophomore on YouTube with my brother Chris Dawson, or Spotify if that fits you a little bit better. But we're all here on YouTube, so just go over there.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, man. Talk to you the next one. Gig 'em.
All right. Thank you.